Hey guys, Trevor with Area Home Services here. Let's talk real quick about water softeners, what they are and why you should have one. So basically what a water softener is and what it does, it takes the hard water causing minerals out of your water. So those are things like calcium and magnesium. Those are the main two things that cause limescale to build up in your plumbing system. So essentially what it does is there is a media inside of here that facilitates what's called an ionic exchange. In layman's terms, essentially the water goes in and that swaps the sodium bicarbonate from the salt that you put in for the calcium and the magnesium that's in your water, and then the soft water goes out. So hard water goes in, soft water goes out, and now it's a lot easier on your plumbing system. So that calcium and magnesium in the water builds up over time in your pipes, especially in things like tankless water heaters, in the bottom of your water heater, on your faucets, shower heads, in the cartridges in your faucet, and it will cause those things to fail prematurely. The two biggest things that lead to early failure in your plumbing system is the hardness of the water and the pressure of the water. So that is one of the reasons why a water softener is such an important component and why most plumbers will recommend them when they're at your house. It's not just something that's there for comfort. Most water softeners are installed on what's called a softener loop. In most new homes, they will actually install a water softener loop whether or not they're putting in a softener, just to sort of prepare the home for that. Essentially what that means is there's a little loop, kind of like what we have here if you ignore the softener even existing, to where you're kind of like set up and prepared. It's like softener ready essentially in the house. And what that essentially means is if you put a softener in there, the softener will provide soft water to the entire house except for anything that shouldn't be softened. And that would be things like the hose bibs of the house and typically the cold water supplying a kitchen. In some cases, if you have to install a water softener after the fact, you can either try to isolate those things, or you can install a water softener to soften the entire house if you understand maybe either the risks of doing that or do something to mitigate the salt supplying the drinking water. So what this softener essentially does is once every 14 days or so, it will actually clean itself out, and that's the main function of the salt. Is the salt will backwash back through this tank. It'll clean off all of the media that's in there, the resin is what it's called. It'll clean it back off and then replace it back, that sodium and calcium again, with the sodium bicarbonate. It'll flush all that calcium magnesium down the drain, as you can see here, and then you'll be ready to go again to start softening the water in the house again. So basically these are set. They have a functionality in here where it'll either go for the amount of gallons of water that'll go through here on the pre-program for the size of softener that you have, or it will go every about 14 days, whichever comes sooner. So you'll never run out of soft water in that period of time. Looking at the brine tank, here we have some salt pellets. You typically want to keep this, at least having a decent amount in there. Generally, we don't like to go over this. Most of these brine tanks are going to have this little piece here that actually holds the float in place. That's a good little fill line on there. They do make nice little, there's one called Easy Salt that you can actually mount in the top of your lid here that will alert you when you're getting low on salt. So it's kind of a nifty little Wi-Fi smart device. So if you wanted something like that, you can give us a call and we do sell those. If you do ever find that your brine tank has gone empty, it's usually not anything to really panic about or be too worried about, as long as it hasn't been too long. If it's been empty for a really, really long time, we might want to do some sort of servicing on here, especially if your water softener is older. That can have an effect on the water softener. It can potentially even damage the water softener. But if it's a newer water softener and it's only been empty for a month or something like that, you're usually pretty safe to just put salt back in and be good to go. Now, a lot of people will say that they get kind of a slimy feeling or whatever in the shower when they have soft water. In most cases, that's just because the water now actually is making your skin softer. It's not necessarily that there's actually a residue being left on your skin. It's essentially just that now your skin is softer. You don't have to use as much soap when you have a water softener because the soap actually lathers better. And so that water softener is actually just doing its job, and you may be using a little bit more soap than you need to use. And so sometimes if you adjust how much soap you're using, you won't feel that. Now, modern water softeners do a lot better at that ionic exchange, and they don't use as much salt in the process. And so some people won't necessarily notice that nowadays. One important thing to check if you do have a water softener is just to make sure periodically that the time is correct on your water softener. This is typically going to be an indication of whether the programming is happening the way that it should. In some cases, it may even be an indication that the programming was never set up correctly, meaning that it wasn't set to the proper hardness in your area, and maybe the programmed time for it to actually do the regeneration cycle might not have been proper. If it's off by an hour or a couple hours, that might just be an indication that either you had a long power outage or it wasn't changed on daylight savings time. But if it's off dramatically, there may be some problem with the actual programming, and it's probably a good idea to give us a call, and we'd be happy to come out and take a look at the programming on that for you and make sure everything's functioning properly.